Matt Holmes is the Executive Director of the Canadian Organic Trade Association and is also recently elected world board member of the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movements. Matt is very well known nationally and internationally for his work on regulation and standards, as well as his work with marketers. Matt, I don't want to take any of your time because I want to hear what you have to say, so I think I'll just keep the introduction short and sweet and call it that. And if you'd like to, Matt comes to us from New Brunswick, but soon from Ontario.
Thank you, Deb. Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I don't believe that what we call the clicker box where I'm from is working, so I need to volunteer to advance the slides. Otherwise, my talk will be very short. Which may actually work. First of all, I trust these. Thank you. Before I get going, though, I wanted to just acknowledge the organizers of the conference. I think I do a lot of these, and I travel all over the place, and often I don't know exactly which city I'm in. And I have to say that this is a fantastic conference. I really enjoyed myself. And as far as I'm concerned, we're going to be at this every conference we're going to be here, because it's just fantastic. So congratulations to the organizers, and thank you for all your work. I think the number of bodies in the room, the producers, the buyers, all of the activity, and the fellow speakers, present company excluded, of course, this is a real testament to your organization and all of your work, so thank you. So, in the presentation today, I'm going to answer all of your questions and cover just about everything. So, I won't leave any time for questions at the end. However, there may. But I am over there at the booth, and please come and see me. We have some information there, and I'm happy to speak with any of you. I'm here till tomorrow, so there's lots of time. I would say, though, you should avoid all curtains at the Travelodge Hotel bar. I'm not sure if they're here, but they're responsible for being almost not being here as well. There were a couple of nights. Okay, so first I do. Okay. So this is a quick rundown of what I'm going to talk about. Just what it is, what we're doing. A snapshot of the marketplace. We don't have a lot of information yet on that, unfortunately, but we will have more. And I'm going to identify a few of the sort of critical issues that we're dealing with. You can't hear that one? Okay. I'm going to identify, wow, okay. Is that better? Okay. I'll trust you on that. I'm going to identify a few of the critical issues that we see out there and that we're working on that either impacts the organic sector or presents some challenges that we need to respond to. And then I'm going to focus in at the end on some branding and risk management. Specifically, how do we present ourselves to the consumer, to the public, to the media, and how do we address some of the knives in the back of organic that frequently appear. So, next slide, please. This is CODA. Our mission is to promote and protect the growth of the organic trade to benefit the environment, the farmers, the public, and the economy. We've had a long history in Canada. We started as the Organic Food Production Association of North America in 1985, so that was a North American group, and that became the Organic Trade Association, which has always had Canadian governments, always had at least a minimum of 2 Canadian board seats. Back in 2005, though, we started having a more dedicated Canadian presence, and in 2007, we founded the Canada Organic Trade Association as a distinct non-profit in Canada that's controlled by an exclusively Canadian elected board of directors from our membership. And I want to put some shout-outs. We have a couple of Saskatchewans now on that board, so Lisa Mung and Dwayne Smith are both on our board, and we have Mike Fada and Manitoba as well. So we have a really nice spread of dedicated board members, really great people who are helping us sort of hear what are some of the issues in the country and respond to some of them. lot of our work is to be the first responders. So we are typically the people that are out in the media responding to issues. Some of you may recall almost a year ago in December, CBC's investigative team published research that they had conducted that found pesticide residues on apples, organic apples in Canada. And we went into, we were on the National with Peter Mansbridge. We were on 19 radio drive-home programs with CBC. We were engaged in social media to really respond to this because they were coming and they were saying, what do you say to the consumer who's buying this organic apple and assuming that it's pesticide-free? And what we had to say is, that is a concern. But there are pesticides in the Arctic sea ice, and there are pesticides, hundreds of them, in unborn children. And that is the reality of our world, and that is the problem that organic is trying to address in our system. And so we need to, in fact, if you see that, and you see that trace contamination showing up on organic, that's actually a reason to continue to buy organic and support that and grow that scale so that we can start to change that world and that sad reality. Another one in the U.S. that my colleagues worked on was in a story that the headline read, "Organic meat not free of drug-resistant bacteria." And OTA got the science from them and went through it all and found that actually there weren't any organic samples in their data. And so this is the sort of thing, it's either intentional or willfully negligent, or just sometimes, the quick, fast world of putting out a story in the press means that often organic is an easy target because the media likes to take it down a notch. So a lot of what we do is to try and respond to that, to try and correct that misinformation and make sure that you have the space and the trust of the consumer to grow your business and your production. Next slide, please. This is also some of the things we do. We're very active on standards committees, on government advisory boards, and increasingly now Agriculture Canada, CFIA, they're asking organic to be at the table of just about everything. And so a big part of what we do, some of our colleagues in the other organizations as well, is show up and really just try to be in the room and have a presence for organic. We support our members with information and resources. The Canada Organic Retailing Practices Manual, this tells retailers and handlers how to ensure organic integrity, for example. And we also have a labeling guide, which shows you some of the differences in the EU, the US, and Canada, and specifically the requirements, the technical requirements around labeling an organic product in Canada based on the regulations. So those are some of the information resources we give members. Excellent. This will be, sorry? No, that's fine. So in the next section, I'm just going to walk through some of the information we have about the market. It's a changing space. We don't really know what we're dealing with, unfortunately, in Canada. And some of that will change soon. But it's always one of our biggest needs is data. We don't have much data. We can't really tell you how many organic apples are being sold in Canada, unfortunately. But we're trying to fill that gap. We're trying to get more information out there. This is going to help users, it's going to help the manufacturers, and also the policy setters. So in Ottawa or in Regina, where they're making policies to support organic, they need to know really what is the marketplace looking like, what is production looking like, and what are the growth trends. And so I'm going to walk you through what we have and tell you a bit about what we will have soon. So on the top graph here, this is a U.S. slide, or a U.S. graph. The green bars are showing the market growth of the organic sector in the United States. And the blue line is showing the growth rate. So the green is the actual sales, and the blue is the rate of growth. And so you can see in 2009 that sharp drop with the recession. But what really organic stands out with during that time is that we continued to grow. That drop was a drop in the rate of growth. It was slower growth, but it was growth nonetheless. And you can see by 2010, they're already back up to almost 9% growth, and that trajectory is continuing to grow. So what happened out of that was most of the other food sectors were in negative growth situations during that time. They were going out of business, they were losing all kinds of sales and margin, and organic continued to respond positively, even in the recession. A lot of people took note of that. And now we're back. And in many cases, often with organic, supply is a problem globally. Having enough supply to meet the consumer demand is actually one of our biggest problems. And so, in a way, this drop in growth just took a bit of the pressure off. Unfortunately, and I'll talk about it, we also lost supply during that time. And that's an issue that we need to address and look at in a long-term way. And I will be talking about that. Globally, the market is almost worth $60 billion a year. And the bottom graph shows you where that's being produced. So the major markets, of course, are North America and the European Union. They account for about 96% of that $60 billion. But if you look at the graph, and I'm not sure how well the yellow is showing up, the yellow lines coming out of the regions are the production zones. And so South America, Australia, and Europe are far and away supplying a lot of their production. North America, as a region, is hardly showing up. And that's a problem that we need to be aware of and work on. There's also a lot of change happening. The global governments are regulating, and in Canada that was an important part of setting up the structure for organic in Canada, was to have the government regulations and the standards to make a level playing field, to control imports, and to provide trust to consumers. But every time a government does that, and we're now up to about 75 countries in the world with regulations, standards, or in the process of putting those in place, it typically means you have another set of standards you need to certify to. If they have a system like ours, or the US or Europe, where to get into the country you need to meet their system. So that means that in addition to being really good at developing organic standards, we as a sector are really good at making trade barriers for ourselves. Because every time you've got a new government regulation and standard, you have one more set of barriers to actually getting into that marketplace. And so I will be talking later in the presentation a little bit about equivalency and some of the trade angles we've been trying to take to address some of that. In terms of also what's happening in the global dynamic, the traditional supplier countries, China, Brazil, India, are increasingly becoming the consumer countries as well. They have a profoundly faster growing economies than ours. They have a strong middle class that's looking for value products. They have a lot of trust and a lot of interest in the products that we have, and in North America and in the so-called West or the North, and increasingly the trade dynamic is changing where they're starting to bring organic in. And so we're seeing Brazil in particular growing very quickly, and we're anticipating that 96% of North America and Europe being the marketplace will change quite drastically over the next 10 years, and we'll see India, China, and Brazil as a really big part of that. As we have this trade dynamic, as we have the increase in government regulations and a tighter supply, we also have a great opportunity for fraud. We have a lot of opportunity there for people to misrepresent products as organic in the marketplace, and that hits all of us at a trust level, and it also undermines the system we've created. And so we have to also be aware of that as one of our risks, and I'll be speaking about